So, I have a couple of life interview questions. And this kind of came about because my mom adopted me in her 40s. She was late 50s, mid 50s when she was diagnosed with COPD, which is a lung disease. And my mom grew up in a time, it was the 30s, 40s, 50s, and it was glamorous to smoke. And you worked at a chemical factory, there was no EPA. So there's all these things that she was exposed to in her life that could have caused this awful lung disease. So by the time I got out of high school, she wasn't able to work, she was on disability, and she was sick for functioning, but she didn't get really bad for probably 15, 18 years later after she was diagnosed when I was in high school. And when she started to get really sick, we had this immediate, urgent need to document and scramble and get as much documented about her life as we could. And it's ironic because she was sick the whole time, but it wasn't until it started to get really bad and she was having surgery and the surgery didn't work and they did the blood work but they didn't see this heart condition. So once she had the surgery on the lungs, then she had heart issues, and it started to get worse and worse and worse. And around that time my kids were 2 and 4, and her biggest fear was she wanted to be remembered. She didn't want to be forgotten. And it was important that they knew her and they knew about her. And you have this moment where, for me, I had this moment when I realized she's not going to be here to see my daughter's heart get broken or to see my son get his first car. Like, they're not going to have their Nana to go cry on her shoulder because she's the wise one and she's the one that always has the best advice. Those moments are going to be stolen from both of them. They're just not going to happen. So we documented her life in Microsoft Word. Like, we had smartphones, we had camcorders. I wish I would have just videotaped her, but I didn't. She just typed it in Word. She was wheelchair bound probably for the last year or so of her life, and she just typed about her life. Now, with these life interview questions, if you go in the description, there's a website where you can go download this PDF that has all these questions. There's 2 PDFs. One is very high level, 2 or 3 questions about where were you born, what's your memories about childhood, did you know your great grandparents, did you know your great great grandparents, and history for that person. Because here's the thing, we have people that are our grandparents that are aging rapidly. And right now, I feel like we're really disconnected opposed to where we were 30 years ago. Our lives have changed. We don't meet for family dinner once a week. We don't go play at our cousin's house. Our lives are different. So because we don't have these interactions and we don't sit down and look at a photo album and talk about, oh, this is when Uncle Bob did this, and oh, look, this is your Aunt Jenny, and this is what happened, then those stories are lost. Those memories are lost. So when we did this with my mom, I wish I would have videotaped her. But you can videotape. All of our smartphones are like a high definition mobile recording studio. So you can do that. And it doesn't matter if they're an elder, it doesn't matter if they're someone that's younger. I think these are questions that will help you get to know someone on a deeper level, regardless of the age. Now, if you have living grandparents or living great grandparents, then you have an opportunity to capture something that you may not be able to capture from anybody else in your family. So because I was adopted and because of how my mother was raised, her mom, she was born in the 30s. Her mom died of TB when she was less than 6 months old. So she has no memory of her. Her father remarried to a woman that did not want children, and he was killed in the war. So she lived in this house with her stepmother and her mother for people that never wanted to raise a little girl. So when my mom talks about her life, there's nothing but pain and tragedy and awfulness until she's older. So she got out of her house. The only way you could get out of your house at that point was to get married. So she dropped out of high school, 15, got married. At the time, you became custody of your husband until you were 21. She had 3 kids by 20. Can't get a job because you don't have a high school diploma. So she got her GED, raising 3 kids, and filed for divorce back in the early 50s, which was not heard of. So if you ever had a conversation with my mom and she talked about her past, she never talked about being a child. She never talked about her her life. She didn't know her grandparents. She didn't know her parents. So I never had that rich sense of this is my ancestry, this is my legacy. Whereas my husband's family, huge family. His mother's one of 9, and her parents were 5 or 6 on each side. And he's got tons of cousins, aunts, uncles, and they're close. And they have traditions and they have this ancestry legacy thing that they pass between each other. But I didn't have that. So I didn't have the foresight to ask these questions, and you do. So you have the opportunity to take these questions or any other questions and just get a deeper understanding of whomever that you're interviewing. I like interviewing elders because I feel like they have so much history and so much that we can learn from them. And it's sad because we don't see them as much and we're not as connected as we used to be. So it's not commonplace to know these stories about people. I mean, you could have someone that you've been married to for 30 years and not know these things. So let's look at some of the questions. So there's 2, if you go to the website that's below, there are 2 documents. The first one is very high level and just goes into kind of different topics. Let me show it to you. So it's a PDF and it starts chronologically, and you cannot go to someone and say, tell me about your life. Who are you? Because nobody thinks they're interesting, and you don't know where to start. Like, what do you say? I would say I love food. I like carrot cake. I actually just had a birthday and have a delicious carrot cake in the kitchen. But I don't know what to say. So the questions prompt them, and it makes them think about things that they probably haven't thought about forever. But make sure you record it and put it somewhere. Get it off your phone, get it off your tablet, get it off your camcorder, and back it up to the cloud. Google Photos is free, so there's no reason you have nothing backed up. Just back it up. Get it off whatever you put it on pretty quickly. So they start with, where were you born? Childhood. So if I were asking these questions to my mom, I know the pieces where she's born, and then the pieces that are difficult for her or painful, she just like skipped over. So if there are certain questions that people may not want to answer, don't push. Just let them go and go to the next one. So then you can talk about family history. If there's anything specific that you want to know, especially there's always like stories that go around. So I heard great great grandpa so and so came over here from another country and he had $10. Is that what happened? So get the stories out and then you have them. So anything that you want to know that's particular that might not be on this list, these are just the most common questions that we tend to ask for any general topic. If there's any family traditions, we had a gentleman that we interviewed and he was of German descent and they had this Christmas pickle. So they would literally go cut down a tree, but they had to go through the forest and find a pickle in a tree. That's a tradition that he misses out on. And he did it with his kids, but his kids don't do it with their kids. But that's something that if you hear that and you're a 9-year-old little boy, you might ask your dad if we can go cut down a tree with a pickle. So, I mean, it's just things like that that they bring back these memories, and they're your legacy and your traditions and your family, and that's something that you can pick up on and continue for many, many generations. If there's anything about your heritage, your ancestors, um, favorite holidays, like my mom's favorite holiday was Halloween, whereas other people have other holidays that they love, but it's just random. Like you just kind of assume that everybody's favorite holiday is Thanksgiving or Christmas. Nope, hers was Halloween. So that's a big day that we give things to the kids that she left. So she left Christmas presents, and my mom gives old school Christmas presents. So I think my son got a harmonica this year and a book about how to play the harmonica. No new toys. Even when she could buy new toys, she's buying old toys. So it's the stuff that she played with because everything she gave him came with a story. So all of these things were holidays. So Halloween's important to her. So they actually get presents on Halloween because that's what she liked. She would give them, and they're not big things. It would be like a little sock puppet or something like that. But it's from her, and that's what she would do. If there's anything about education, there's also questions that are much deeper and much more profound. And they're your life lessons. They're what you've learned about love, what you've learned about family. And sometimes these lessons don't come until later in life. Sometimes people don't get them at all. But most times it doesn't hit us when we're young. Like, we all go through this phase where we're invincible and we know everything and our parents don't know anything. They're just, they don't even get people. And that we don't realize until later in life, I guess my mom did have some common sense and I guess she was right about these things. But things like that if you can teach people earlier in life, these things that took you years to learn, and maybe they still have to learn them on their own. But maybe, just maybe they listen and they learn from you. Those questions to me are really the life interview questions you need to have. And it doesn't matter if it's life questions or if it's autobiography questions or if it's you're capturing a living legacy or a video legacy. Those are the things that shaped who we are, that made us the people that we are today, to raise the people that we do today. And I think those are just truly the ones that are really profound. So then we have stuff, a lot of the things that happened to my mom, although were tragic, also put her on the path of her life. And some things you can't really make sense of, and some things that happen don't need to happen or shouldn't have happened. All these things that have happened in our history, the Holocaust and slavery, and these moments in time that we are just not the best human beings we could be. But they happened. So if there are things that have happened that have changed the path that someone was on or shaped who they became, that is just as important as the good parts. So people may not want to be open about that. People might not want to talk about that, and that's fine. But if there's something that can help shape future generations or can teach a lesson even after they're gone, then get it and capture it. There's things about loss. So because it was just me and my mom, I didn't really have a lot of loss. I didn't have any family to lose. She was really the only one that, I have an aunt that lived far away but was close to us, and my sister, and she passed in her 40s. And the only thing that my mom ever taught me about loss is hold on to the love, not the loss. So it's so easy as we grieve to go through these things and anything like that you can pass on that maybe was hard for you to learn, or maybe you're still trying to learn it, or you're still trying to follow that philosophy, then that's what the interview questions can be about. So if you go to the website below, you can get this high level list that is, I don't know, 3 questions, probably about 20 different topics or 20 different areas. And then I also have a much bigger document that is about 7 pages. I mean, this is like 3 pages. That's way more questions that go deep into religion or war, or if I could explain what 3 words how would you want to be remembered? What 3 words would you describe? What's important to you? Just things like that are, some are light and some are like really heavy. So you just pick and go with the flow. And it's not, when you ask these questions, it's not for you to be like, oh yeah. And it's not your interview. And unless it is your interview, then you can talk as much as you want. But just let it flow and ask what you need to ask, and whatever direction it goes, it goes. But this is something that can be such a great bonding experience, especially if you have younger kids that are always on their smartphone and interviewing your parents, your mom, your dad, your granddad, and getting that while they're here, because it is so important that we get it while they're here. So I hope you like the questions. I didn't want this to be a down video. I hope it wasn't. But enjoy the questions. Go to the website below. You can download the PDF. And if you have any questions, any comments, then just let me know. Okay,